get in.
Y de la Diputación Provincial de Córdoba queremos daros la bienvenida y que os sintáis.
España, mañana será republicana. Si no pasa mañana.
De la Segunda Guerra Mundial. De la derrota o victoria de la República dependía el estallido de la guerra. Los fascistas, Hitler y Mussolini, triunfaron y esta victoria les dio alas para proseguir su guerra de agresión contra todo el mundo. La República Española, una joven república de trabajadores nacida en 1931, pretendía consolidar el movimiento del Belalcázar por habernos ayudado a preparar este homenaje y haber instalado esta placa. Como agradecemos. And they haven't managed to do it on time, so let's not take it at heart. This will be on place and this will...
Buenos días, dar la bienvenida en nombre mío y de la corporación a la cual represento y en nombre de todos y todas los vecinos, vecinas de Belalcázar, a las asociaciones que han hecho posible este evento.
British 2nd Father Battalion that Irish Brigadistas first went into action as a group. 9 of them gave their lives on this front and 3 were wounded. 6 of those killed in action were from the first organised group of 13 who had accompanied their leader Frank Ryan into Spain on December 14, 1936.
¡Viva la República!
You cannot take any photograph of children under 18, and if you have taken any, you didn't know at the school, you cannot put them on your social media.
Una situación complicada como fue la guerra civil. Pero ahora nos encontramos aquí, en la distancia, pero a la vez muy de cerca, para rendir homenaje a
tanto tiempo. Nosotros tampoco hemos olvidado su valentía y desprendimiento personal. Por eso, y en memoria de esos jóvenes,
if Europe's walls come tumbling down, and one by one the bastions fall, what will it matter if we all, in that great chaos, drown? We search the minutes we have spent, but feel in time's relentless beat the threat of ultimate defeat. Only the dead can rest content. And all they had to give, to save from blood and fire and dust, at least a hope that we can trust. We must remember them and live.
Llegaban los cañones hasta Peñarroya Pueblo Nuevo. Desde aquí disparaban hasta Peñarroya Pueblo Nuevo.
A ver, España. Another one.
Satisfechos que todos ustedes, todas ustedes estén
Our story needs to be told, and now is my turn to speak. Okay? She's an historian, and she said there is two kinds of historians in the
de las brigadas de MT. Yo es que soy castellano exclusivamente.
and fight the rising tide of Franco and fascism that was sweeping not across Spain but across Europe. I will speak of the men who came from Ireland, most of them Catholic and Protestant, which is very unique in Ireland. These were true Republicans. The vast majority of them were former members of the Irish Republican movement. We had a famous Irish Lord Mayor in Cork, Terence McSweeney, who died on hunger strike on the 20th of October 1920 in Brixton Prison. And he wrote, "If but a few are steadfastly found, they must be all the more faithful for being just a few." I speak of the few that came from across the world, that came to Spain. I think especially of young people like Tommy Wood, 18 years of age, who died here in Andalusia. I think of Jimmy Meehan from County Galway, who badly injured with Jerry Dolan, said, "I am not as badly injured as Jerry. Take Jerry on the only stretcher available. I'll be fine." And it's extraordinary that his family are here today, his two daughters. Jimmy's body was never found. He lies here in Spanish soil, along with the other 9 Irishmen who died in this area. We salute their memory. And I will finish as I remember Bob Doyle. Bob Doyle told us that our enemy does not come now dressed in a soldier's uniform. Our enemy now is the banker, the developer, the multinational. You remember that? And I will finish in the words of Bob Doyle. La lucha continua. La lucha continua.
Muy poco hablo sobre la guerra de David tan mucho. Pensar la guerra da a estos eventos. Estaba en mundo, estaba bastante viejo, era en entrevista.
The volunteers, to the international volunteers of the 13th Brigade and the 20th Battalion that defended in this land freedoms and the democratic government of the Second Republic, 8th February 2016, the town hall in La Granjuela, and amigos de las Brigades Internacionales.
¡Viva las Brigadas Internacionales! ¡Viva!
cohesión. La última vez que las brigadas internacionales llegaron aquí a Andújar fue un día de alegría. Fue un día de alegría.
Bueno, también
¡Viva las brigadas internacionales!
¡Viva! Hemos sabido hacer con la fuerza y frecuencia que estos brigadistas solidarios se merecían. Aprovechamos que este año celebramos el 80 aniversario de la...
Today, our second day of paying homage to the International Brigades. This is a homage we're paying not with the frequency or the intensity that they deserve, but this is a good occasion to be able to commemorate their memory.
E seppellire lassù in montagna, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fiore. E questi fiori del partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà, morto per la libertà.
Siguen saliendo, aflorando proyectiles de la batalla.
Around this time of the year, or even sooner, when they're collecting the olives, there is still more and more bullets that are unearthed.
Cerro el Calvario,
The Calvary Hill,
que luego se llamó Ralphos,
which was later renamed as Rathcoff,
y el Cerro San Cristóbal.
and the San Cristobal Hill.
Bueno, el día que habían estado 2 días en Albacete prácticamente no sabían disparar.
We cannot forget that the convoys were actually
I saw the light of morning, a comradeship of heroes was laid. From every corner of the world came sailing the 15th International Brigade. They came to stand beside the Spanish people, to try and stem the rising fascist tide. Franco's eyes were the powerful and wealthy. Frank Ryan's men came from the other side. And even the olives were bleeding as the battle for Madrid is thundered on. Truth and love against the force of evil, a brotherhood against the fascist plans. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no passerand pledged to lead them fight. Adelante is the cry around the hillside. Let us all remember them tonight. Jack Naughty, Tony Patton and Frank Conroy, Jim Foley, Tony Fox and Dick O'Neill. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no passerán de pledge
¡Viva la Revolución Francesa! ¡Viva! ¡Viva las Brigadas Internacionales! ¡Viva!
¡Viva la solidaridad internacional!
¡Viva!
¡Viva la Tercera República Española!
¡Viva!
¡Viva el comunista y la libertad!
Don't move, don't move.
We'll win in the end.
Yes, maybe, that's right. Where are we going now?
Sounding good. Sounding good.
Can we turn around the side?
Please.
Curious. Fair seas, aren't they?
Yeah, which one does Sarah?
Leaves are gorgeous.
Seán, Crowe, capitulated! In a dollar! A shilling, a green a Yorba, and it's a green gap deal. A hiking for dealing, and then a main gap, an echoing art museum, the Heron, Spat the Verica, Ruin the Pala, she saw it, Erlania,
Compañeros y compatriotas, vos y conf, intelectuales, escritores y comunistas, luchadores por la libertad.
This monument was unveiled in September 1999 as part of the Congress, the International Congress, which was basically culture, history and literature of a Spanish Republican exile in 1939. This monument is the work of the local architect Jacobo Galvez Navarro. The town mayor at the time was Pedro Valenzuela Ruiz.
Ralph Fox was one of the finest talents of his generation. Alert, serious, unsectarian. These are only just part of what he actually did say, but they are very, very relevant. The second one is from Storm Jameson, the novelist. The loss of Ralph Fox to English writers and to English literature is a severe one. We need sorely the intelligence, the lucidity, and above all, the courage and integrity which were his. The third one is from Professor Bonamy Dobré, the University of Leeds. His death was a loss to the world of living literature, since he believed that literature mattered as part of life. And the fourth one was from Councillor Dryden Brooke, who was the Member of Parliament for Halifax at the time. He was a shining example of a great truth. It is not how long we live or when we die that really matters. The supremely important question is what we have done with our lives and how we die. To finish, I'm going to read part of an unknown letter. This letter I saw after I came here on Thursday. I did not know it existed. This letter was written 9 days in an awkward position. Please don't fail to let him know this.
Tu recuerdo es el dolor que siento en mi costado, la sombra que enturbia mi vista. El viento se levanta al atardecer, recordando que el otoño está cerca. Let's go, we have another event. Let's go.
Come on.
It's very important that he's here with us, supporting us. We do have, of course, Isabel Uceda, the mayoress in Lopera. We have shown Crowe, okay, yes, from Belfast. We have erase, okay, from Dublin. Yeah, one of those things, sorry. Okay, Richard Baxell representing the IBMT, José Luis Lopera, Mari Carmen, delegada de Cultura, ¿no? Bien, she's the local councillor for culture. Juan Ángel, who is representing the cultural Diputación Provincial de Jaén, and Jane Bernal, the daughter of Margot Heinemann. Okay.
I'll have to put my Belfast accent on. Carjaggers, camaradas, amigos, compañeros. The men and women who joined the International Brigade were motivated by the highest ideals. It wasn't for wealth, profit or personal gain they came. It was for freedom and democracy. Many of the Irish who fought and spilled their blood on the soil of Spain came from an Ireland that had witnessed and experienced the brutality of imperialism in all its forms. They came from a land where the population had been decimated in one generation, as over 1 million people died of starvation and disease, and another million were lost through forced emigration. Many of those who died from the International Brigade came from Dublin, a city I proudly represent in the Irish Parliament today. The Dublin they came from had slums and a poverty and child mortality rate that was higher than Calcutta. Workers and their families scraped by in an overcrowded tenement housing. Work was scarce and organised labour brutally suppressed. Many had fought and taken an active part in the Irish freedom struggle. They were all Irish Republicans and all were internationalists. Arriving in Spain, they were met with a warmth and a welcome that they'd never before experienced. No passerán was the cry from the people across the world in a fight to support democracy and against the fascist tide that was sweeping across Europe. The odds were stacked against them, badly equipped, but with their courage and righteousness of their cause, the International Brigaders stopped Franco's army's advance. Democracy lost out in the end, but the men and women of the International Brigade were not involved or responsible for that failure. And as we gather here today, we must remember the contemporary problems in Europe, the construction of Fortress Europe, the economics of austerity, the denial of asylum for people fleeing war and hunger, the rise of racism and xenophobia. All are symptoms of the failure of the worst excesses of unbridled capitalism. Let us all here today gather together to make a commitment to work and make the world the International Brigaders fought for a reality. Venimos, viva la República, el pueblo de Viva!
chair of the IBMT, and on a more personal level, I am very pleased to be here. As one or two of you may know, I'm a historian who has written on the involvement of volunteers from Britain and around the world in the fight for Spanish democracy. If I may, I would like to talk very briefly about just one of those volunteers who fought at La Pera all those years ago. Unlike John Cornford and so many others, he was very lucky. He survived both the battle itself and his time in Spain. The volunteer's name was Sam Russell. Sam Lesser, sorry. Some of you may know him by the pseudonym Sam Russell. In 1936, Sam was a young undergraduate studying archaeology in London. But following the outbreak of the Civil War in Spain, he chose to suspend his studies to join the International Brigades and fight for Spain's Republican government. Sam was one of the early British volunteers and served in Madrid's University City in November and the following month here at La Pera. As you will know, the poorly armed and trained members of No. 1 Company of the 14th International Brigade suffered terribly in the battle. Sam was himself wounded in the foot and was very lucky to be physically dragged from the battlefield by a comrade. After a period of convalescence in hospital and a short trip home to London, in July Sam returned to Spain, becoming a radio broadcaster and newspaper correspondent. He remained in Spain until the fall of Barcelona on the 26th of January 1939. That I knew Sam well. He was one of my predecessors as chair of the IBMT, and we often talked about his time in Spain. I know that he sometimes felt that the La Pera action was not as well known as it should be. So he would be very pleased and proud to see everyone gathered here. On behalf of Sam and all those unable to be here in person, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone involved in organising this wonderful tribute.
Eddie.
Fascists, and the question they had asked of why do we remember? But last night I got to think about it, and I said I've heard these words before, and the words were asked of us, and that question was asked us after the Charlie Donnelly monument was unveiled in which we didn't know at the time was a right-wing pub in Madrid. And in that pub, this well-spoken gentleman kept asking us, Christian, everyone asking us, why do you remember? And then, as in now, that wasn't a difficult question to answer. And I have to read this section because this comes from the speech that I delivered in the Ateneo at the launch of the Charlie Donnelly book, which was translated and dispensed by Elisa here. What is happening in the world and elsewhere at the moment is very, very similar to what happened in the 30s. We live in a world where big business, that is capitalism, has usurped the democratic political process. That process is used as a veneer to mass tyranny, whereas people and its future generations are in bondage to the ECB and the IMF. Such a scenario was unfolding prior to the Spanish Civil War. An economic crisis, banks collapsing in Europe, and mass unemployment. The response then, as now, is to make the pair pay. To enact that philosophy in the 30s were the politics of Mussolini and Hitler. Against the wider backdrop, the hopes of the poor in Spain were being dashed by the overthrow of a fledgling democratic republic. Little help was given by Western democracies. Indeed, by their non-intervention pact, Spain and fellow democrats were Spain's fellow democracies handed victory to Franco and his general and Italian allies. My apologies, it's difficult to read this in the sunlight. It was left to Russia and Mexico to help Spain, and from that sprung the IB. In Ireland and in many other countries, there were also fascist movements, and that awareness among many that fascism itself must be challenged. Ireland's leading socialists and Republicans enlisted in the fight for Spain to defend democracy. Their view was that a blow struck against fascism in Spain was a blow struck for universal freedom. Indeed, when asked why he was going to Spain, Tommy Patton replied that the bullet that took him wouldn't get a Spanish worker. Tommy died in the battle for Madrid.
Tommy murió en la batalla por Madrid.
The West's response led to the triumph of Franco and his allies, Hitler and Mussolini. It became their stepping stone to World War II, and that obliged the Western democracies into an alliance with the Soviet Union, which finally defeated fascism. A pact at an international level was the same popular front that the Spanish Republic represented. It was the Spanish people's tough luck to have been the first to fight the battle. War in Spain, International Brigade veteran Bob Doyle asked at Jarama, "Did my comrades die in vain?" Though fascism was defeated militarily in World War II, its operative philosophy continues. The total control of the media by a handful of individuals, the burgeoning private security services interlinked with state security services are indications that fascism today is a much more subtle process. And this danger, this daily reality is why we must remember. We don't forget, we cannot forget, for we are now living through the very same stages of capitalism that the Spanish Republic and the International Brigaders had to live through. We, like them, have a duty to defend and real and effective democracy and take control of the wealth and of our government and run society today as we choose. If we fail, we shall be more culpable than those who fail to answer the calls to defend democracy in Spain, defend the freedom in Spain in the 1930s. Because unlike them, we have seen it all happen before. I would like to thank, on behalf of Phoebe, for being invited along to this commemoration. Although the past 2 days have been wonderful, I far exceeded the expectations. When Sevi mentioned it first to us in Limerick in 2014 at the Frank Ryan commemoration and asked was it possible to do it. We didn't know, we couldn't be sure, but we know now. And thank you very much to everybody who was involved in it, all the groups who came from throughout the world. Thank you very much, and we are privileged to have been part of this, and we're grateful that we can live to see this part. And as Bob Doyle says, La lucha continua. Abu.
Quisiera rendir aquí un homenaje particular a los jóvenes voluntarios de la 14 Brigada, la marsellesa, que cayeron durante la batalla del Ópera. Tendrá lugar la inauguración del monumento a las Brigadas Internacionales en la estación de Austerlitz, de donde salieron la mayor parte también de los brigadistas rumbo a España y pasando por Perpiñán.
Stranger, whom I once knew well, do not haunt this house. Idle and low spirits can take your name and face. Old green sweater, battered coat, coal black hair, and sleeves too short. Though I know the living man finished with this place, idle and low spirits can take your name and face. Here we laid foundations where never walls were built. Poisoned fires they never dreamed of ring the unrented field. Change is their memorial, who have changed the world.
He aprendido muchísimo de vosotros. Gracias a la ABI, a la Asociación de Amigos de las Brigadas Internacionales y al resto de asociaciones que vienen de Irlanda, de Inglaterra, de Francia. La verdad, al igual que Eric decía hace un momento, el representante irlandés, que le preguntaban en cada una de sus intervenciones que por qué esto ahora. Igual me he sentido identificado porque igualmente en el tiempo
she's very moved, like all of us. She's very moved by what she has witnessed in the last 2 days, and she, like Eddie was talking about, why now? Why people, when people question us, why remember, and it's particularly current in the political climate right here in this village, because Isabel has been questioned pretty much every other day by the media around here. Why are you doing this? Why why don't you just let it lie? And she said, well, basically, it's our debt. We owe it to the International Brigades, and it is also because it is a political compromise And it's also because it's about internationalism, and it's just something that you cannot dispute. It's like, why not remember? What do you mean? Why not? So.
No, it's just...
Ahí al lado, al lado.
Got a new family from now on. No, but it's the males. It's the males competing for the,
To his dying day, he was grand at the football, at the dance he was pro. Young Jamie Boygas was the flower of the mow. I saw the light of morning. A comradeship of heroes was laid. From every corner of the world came sailing the 15th International Brigade. They came to stand beside the Spanish people to try and stem the rising fascist tide. Franco's eyes were the powerful and wealthy. Frank Ryan's men came from the other side. Even the olives were bleeding as the battle for Madrid is thundered on. Truth and love against the force of evil, a brotherhood against the fascist plans. Viva